we're back.
We did. We're here. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. Feels like a long time since we recorded.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot has happened since then as well.
It has. Yeah, there's been good reason for it. And I know it's just a number, which is why we've waited and why there's been a massive gap. But we've done it. Episode 50. Woo! Yeah.
We're on it. And we've got hats to prove it as well.
We've got party hats.
In case you're not watching this, we're wearing party hats and we've got a little crown here ready to put on Max later on as well. So we're going to attempt that.
It's going to be cover photo gold. I can feel it already.
So this is what a month of not recording has done. We've invested in party hats. So
that's it. Yeah.
That's all that's changed about the pod.
And hopefully as well, we are trying a new camera experiment as well. So the people that listen to us on Spotify or wherever, you're probably hopefully going to not feel any different. But if you are watching us on YouTube, you can now see that they'll be like switching around, and we've got a camera on each of us as well as the general camera.
Yes, 3 cameras set up for as long as we can be bothered.
Yeah, and, I feel like that was like our intros, weren't it? If you've been a long time listener, we had like a spate where we had like a little rundown at the start of every episode, and then I think the last 5 we just forgot.
Yeah, we forgot for a while, and then we were like, do we really need them? Somewhere we stopped the episode and we were like, need to record intro now. Nah,
that's fine. We've got music instead. That's it. The little do. That's much better than either one of us talking about what's in the episode. You can just jump in and listen to us. So.
Yeah, it's only for engagement purposes anyway, isn't it? And you can read the description if you really want to know what's coming in the episode. But I feel like just going straight in is much more beneficial. You don't need any of that intro stuff.
But it's still, for me, it still feels a little bit surreal. Like it feels that. So I looked this morning, and it was the 21st of March, 2 years ago, that we sat and we released our first ever episode. Yeah. Which means it's been just over 2 years since we've been doing this.
Yeah.
And now here we are at the point recording our 50th episode.
Yeah. When we started, do you think we would be at this point?
I don't know. It's really odd because I kind of knew from the beginning that I didn't want to start it if I didn't think that it wasn't going to go the distance.
Yeah, of course.
But then statistics state that most podcasts don't make it past 5 or 6 episodes.
Yeah.
So I think once we started to hit 10 and then 20, and like it's one of those things now that it's always over the last 2 or 3 wedding seasons, it's always just been there, and it's always been a constant in kind of my working week and the rest of it.
Yeah.
But it still feels that it seems bonkers that we've managed to get to 50 episodes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that seems like quite a big number.
It does.
But when you think of kind of like milestones, that the next time that we probably sit and do something with party hats on and the rest of it, that will be episode 100, and that seems even more bonkers.
At the same time, when you start episode 1, you're not thinking, in 2 years' time we'll be on episode 50. You're just thinking, right, let's get this one done, then the next one done. And I think the way we went into it really helped as well, because we went in with a mindset of a little bit like we never had the intention of going straight in and creating something from it, right? Yeah. It was always going to be, me and you're going to create a podcast. It's going to be a nice thing we put online, and that's kind of it. If we went in, created a website on day one, that kind of gave ourselves that pressure day one, it would have maybe been a bit different in that. The first year would have been, okay, this is a lot of pressure now, maybe we won't do it. But because it's been slow growth but consistent for us, it's and
also we've had no yardstick to measure our goals against because we never set any. You know what I mean? It was it was literally, wasn't it? Like, and I know we've in our year roundups we've set goals for kind of our own businesses and stuff. But when we actually sat down to record, it was mainly just a case of we'll have our chats that we probably have and other photographers and videographers have over dinner or whatever, and ours will just be recorded and out there, and hopefully somebody will learn from it. But it was never like, we want to have this many followers by this time, or we hope we're going to be reaching these many people by this time, or whatever. And it's only really, I think that's some of the reason that we've had the little bit of the break as well, is that now that we, episode 50 was looming, that it's kind of like, okay, we're almost 2 years in, maybe we should have a conversation or a loose conversation about like what is the future of it, because as much as I enjoy it for what it is, and I don't see any sort of huge changes come into the format or anything like that, it's still kind of nice to know that after such a long period of time that we are still enjoying it and what maybe it could lead to.
Yeah, we didn't take the time off because we weren't enjoying it. We didn't take the time off because we're organising a summit. We're definitely not.
Definitely not organising a summit. We went to one, but we're not organising one. I can tell you that now.
But sometimes you need to step away from something and be like, right, okay, what is this going to mean? Like episode 50 is big. What have we done so far? What are we going to do in the future? And I think obviously the 3 camera setup, the party hat's going forward, obviously.
Yeah, that's different hat every episode, right?
They're just little things that we think, what's going to make it sustainable for us. We've done this now for a couple of years. It's kept the same format. People seem to be enjoying it, but we don't want it to be in another 2 years us going, is this getting a bit stale now? So, we want to keep coming up with fresh ideas. We started it saying that we probably wouldn't get many guests on. That's something we now want to do.
Yes.
I think, and lean into. And what format that takes, we're not exactly sure, but I feel like it's going to be a similar thing where we're not going to be asking people how they started and yada yada. It's going to be, I love our topics that we do with guests. Hannah McGregor, the hybrid episode that we did was really, really well received, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think is that we've always wanted, as much as we're really grateful that you sit and listen to what we have to say in our conversations, we like to kind of make sure that we have got our finger on the pulse of the industry, not only stuff that we're experiencing at the weddings that we're going to, but the bigger world itself. And I think the numbers that episode did particularly, I think, was very easy to see that that's maybe what people, that hybrid thing is really interesting. Which I think then for us as a podcast is great, because people can come and listen to us, and I have some photo knowledge, you have a wealth of video knowledge, and we're talking about these things, can't we, and kind of keeping it relevant as well as kind of offering our own advice as
Definitely.
well.
But there's a lot of stuff that you don't see as well. Like whenever I chat to people who say we love the podcast and whatever, I say it's just nice to do, that we really enjoy doing it. And we record these, we have these recording days, right? And we record 2 episodes, usually around an hour long. But what they don't see is, I spend 7 hours in your house.
It is a full day, isn't it? Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
We go to Tesco, we get our meal deal. We're basically talking for the full 7 hours, and you hear 2 of it. So over the course of the last 2 years, our friendship has grown massively.
Massively, yeah.
Like, we sort of knew each other from wedding fairs, and
but that was it, wasn't it? We literally
really
worked together a couple of times, and been to a couple of events.
Yeah.
So here we are now. We've been on two long holidays together. I've slowly converted Chris to being a Disney fan. That's it. And
I was like, Tom can talk. He's going to be great for a pod. And then now it's much more than that. It's like, these are days that we have to force ourselves to get out of that work bubble during summer, but come in here and just being able to chat everything to you, just hanging out with a mate, which probably you wouldn't get time to do if you weren't blocking out time for it. It's been really good. And like you say, now we've been on holidays together, and it's just been it's been a really cool journey.
It has. It's been, I think, because although this, we talk about work and talk about what we do, it's still really it's a really easy thing to block out in my diary. Even when I've got a big editing pile or lots on, it's like, no, I have to do pod. It needs to be in. We need to get it recorded. So it's a thing that I don't feel guilty about not being at my desk today to do pod, because it's still work related. But I think the selfish reasons, I say, to have kind of us to spend that day, and lots of people have asked us about this as well, is that I think both of us have had wobbles in through summers or at different times, and we've always been able to kind of, both of us have walked away, I think, from a pod day sometimes feeling a lot better about whatever the worry was that we came to with it, and all of those things. So to have that kind of lifeline of someone which understands directly what you do, and have that kind of ability to kind of know that you're only ever a couple of weeks away from having another pod day. I think selfishly, that's probably the biggest takeaway from the pod for me.
Definitely.
As someone that makes it, rather than someone that sits on the other end.
And we were only talking about half an hour ago how it's excelled our businesses as well.
Yes.
Because it's all well and good having groups to go into and ask questions and things like that. But if we're consistently meeting up, once, twice a month, and going through, I'm currently redesigning my website, or I'm currently doing this, or I'm not quite getting the people that I want, or the amount that I want, or something. There's always, me and you hold each other accountable for a lot of things. We're very honest with each other about what we think about how we're going forward, and all these conversations, not just on the pod but then in between, that I think they've excelled my business quite a lot, because it's made me think so much more about brand and who I am and things like that. And I'm a much more confident person now, because I know who I am because of the conversations that we have.
Well, I think also it's really easy that most of us obviously are single business people. We have nothing to run anybody by, or ideas to bounce off of, or anyone to kind of rein us in as well when we have maybe ideas that aren't so great. But just to have someone that you've got that to kind of bounce off of is really good. But also as well, I think there's probably a lot of things that all of us, and I'm sure you guys listening as well, just do. And you don't realise that there actually is a level of skill or thought or inspiration that's led you to why you do that thing that certain way. And almost having to have these conversations where you do analyse the decisions that you make in your business, or how you do things, or the angle that you use, or the setting, or whatever, is that it actually makes you realise sometimes, actually, maybe I do know stuff. I think I'm quite easy to quickly play down and go, I just turn up to a wedding and I just do my thing, and it's But when you think, I know the actual level of thought or training, or once you start to lay it out, it's like, oh, well, I do this way. Yeah. And what for me might be a really matter of fact thing that I've just always done could be a huge takeaway for someone else.
Yeah.
And then even then when you add having an open conversation with a videographer into the mix, to go like, I always feel like I'm just always in front of their camera and this and that, and learning kind of what you need out of a day, or understanding what your thought process is and how you work. I feel that it's not only gave me a much better kind of way to work with my couples, but also a much better person, hopefully a better photographer to work alongside as well, because I have that understanding.
Yeah. And a little peek behind the curtain as well. Like we've got some voice notes as well that we're going to play out later on in the episode. We put out a little story saying, anyone that listens, if you'd like to send us a voice note to be played on episode 50, with a little brief of like whether it's something about the pod, something you've learned from it, a question from us, or something about the summit, which we'll also be talking about in the app. And a lot of those voice notes and a lot of the comments we got when we've met people are that we're relatable.
Yes.
And I feel like that's a huge thing. We're not coming on starting a podcast and when we charge like 10k for a wedding, when you're listening to us thinking, but I'm not going to do that, am I? Like we're at the point, I think, where it's probably like the most crowded market, but it also gives us the relatability because we're there sort of competing in that market and doing bits there. So.
For sure. And I think it's really nice in the variety of voice notes that we've got is there are some people that have come to our workshops, or some people that are at the really very beginnings of their journey. And I like to think that if we can help accelerate their growth by listening to us, that's great. But that would be harder to do if, say, we were at the very kind of top end of our markets. But then also people that have been going for a while can still hopefully learn something by just enjoying the chats for what they are. And also, I think the biggest thing I want to say is thank you to everybody that did bother to kind of send us a voice note or a message or something. It's when we sit behind our mics and we talk, and you kind of put it out there like, oh, we'd love all this feedback, and you kind of think, I really hope something comes. What if nobody does it? If we've made a reel now and we've said it on the app, if we don't have any voice notes, we can look really silly. So it's so everybody that did, that listens and have given back to us with a message. Like, thank you to all of you. That really, really does mean a lot. And it kind of really helps us that when we're just staring across the table into cameras or at each other, it really does make me kind of then start to see the faces of the people that are listening to this conversation. And that really helps, is even more of a driver, isn't it, to want to keep making new episodes?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think until now, like a lot of the time, we get the odd message from someone who's listened to an episode and they love it, or just someone who wants to say like thank you and keep it up. But having been to like Coda and the Summit, and you've been to a couple of them too, where people will approach you and say we really like it, and now we've got the sort of the voice memos to prove it and show it to you guys and have that. It's a really nice feeling, and makes you want to carry on doing it basically. And
I think even for me as well is that I'm really good at, or normally in my business, if I have a problem or if something happens, my initial reaction isn't just to stop and take stock and think analytically about what the best thing to do is. It's just work for it, and keep going at it. But to actually have the month kind of away from recording before we kind of take that deep breath and listen to your voice notes and analyze and stuff. I feel like in some ways that absence has made the heart grow fonder. And when you came today, I was like, it's pod day. It's pod
I was
day.
really excited for
it. And it was really nice to kind of to get back here after what feels like we have had a little bit of a time away and actually get recording and get back on with it again. Like it shows that it definitely is something which is a kind of a staple of my routine now, and something which I don't want to go, or like that break was long enough and I don't maybe want.
Now we haven't had it for that long. It's like, we've
missed it ourselves, which is really, really encouraging.
But it's been a while since we last recorded, so a lot has happened. Our wedding seasons have pretty much started. I think yours more than mine.
I think mine must have started almost the week after our last recording, or a couple of weeks after. So I shot my first wedding at the end of March, and then I did another one which really short notice last week, and then I've got another one next week. So I am kind of in the season. I've got things to edit again.
You're in the mix,
for the first time ever, and obviously I'm starting to have those final meetings for the weddings going forward. So it's kind of back into it.
Yeah. Do you find that when you're at the beginning of the season and things are a little bit more like spaced apart, that you're happy to take longer to edit it, or you might just put it in the pile and be like, there's only one in the queue?
Yes. I think it's. Other years I haven't. I've always been like, right, I'm going to kind of keep this. I'm going to keep things moving. So as soon as one lands, I'll edit it straight away, and then kind of like, it's done. Like, I'm holding my own here. Where I come to realise over the last few years, that sometimes not being able to get to a wedding for a couple of weeks to look at it again after the day is almost, I need to detach myself from the memories of the day and see it for myself through the photos to then piece the story back together with the photos that I've taken. Where, I've said this, we've had episodes about this in the past, where if you deliver a wedding super quickly, people still remember it too well and they look for what's missing in the photographs. Where if you wait to deliver it, they've almost, their memories have started to kind of dwindle, and they look at it. The photos
become
the memories. They become the memories. And so I think this year I made an effort. It's like, no, I know I've got my deadlines. I'm not actively just sat on it and being lazy. I've been busy. I've been to Scotland twice. We've had stuff going on, but I've not felt that pressure of, because that's the only wedding on the pile, that I've had to get it done within 2 weeks.
I
have, but enjoyed almost going, no, I'm leaving it for a reason, and I'll get to it when it needs to get got to.
But part of it is also because of the time of year, I guess, because we're both focusing on like behind the scenes business admin stuff, like doing stuff to the website and adding bits to the workflows and things like that. Like it feels like when one wedding comes along and you've got like 4 weeks to edit or whatever, since the next one comes along, you feel like, I might as well just leave it a couple of weeks while I carry on with my website, and then I'll get to it then.
Yeah, if I'd had nothing and then 3 back to back, I wouldn't have been able to leave them like that, because I would feel like I was starting to let it pile up already. So I'm glad that I've been able to do that, but at the same time, it has been considered, or there have definitely been other things to distract me from getting the edit done.
I've had a couple since December, so I've only had 2. So I had one at the end of February and one at the end of March, and now I don't have one to the end of May. Beginning of May.
Yeah, so you still got a few weeks off again. When
you consider it's like the 9th of April now, that's quite a while I've got to edit that. And it's weird how things are spread out this year, because when I tell people, specifically people probably outside the industry, because I think people in the industry know that things can be spread around, but when I'm like, I haven't got weddings to begin of May, and they're like, are you okay? Are you eating?
I felt the same thing, because we used to about this. I think a lot of people, that the conversations that we've had are more spread out this year, or didn't start till later this year, where like last year I shot a wedding in every month of the year, so it didn't feel like I had a break, but it felt like I was almost constantly in that kind of shoot edit thing, where I feel like I've definitely filled the 3 months that, you say to me, I'm gonna have 3 months off. And I'm never off. I'm still at my desk doing website or doing whatever. But when, say, you chat to someone that's not in the industry and they go, I've got 3 months off now, I'm not shooting. And they look at you, I was like, can you afford to have 3 months off? Like, and I think they just think that that's the thing. Like, we live this obviously jet-setted lifestyle. I can't just take 3 months off work. But it's like the fact that I'm still, say, having meetings, doing an admin stuff, paying taxes. There's never, maybe I'm at my desk less than I am in the summer, but I've definitely still not just been, sat on the sofa or doing nothing for 3 months.
I don't think I've had a day off, to be honest. Like, I've not had a day off, but like, unnecessarily on a weekday. I've been constantly at other desks, like doing things, and yes, they might take a bit longer, but having that little bit of time to sit down and be like, all right, I'm going to breathe, I'm going to do this task. It's not gonna, there's some tasks over like summertime where it gets really busy and I'm like, I've got to do this task, and it really annoys me that I have to do it, and I'm like, it's taking me away from my editing. But it doesn't feel like that now. Those tasks are actually things I enjoy doing now, because it's not taking me away from the editing as much.
And I think as well is that, I was saying, kind of likening it to my own business, where I didn't have that time at the start of last year. Is some of that stuff was really overdue. Like I had actually a proper revamp of my portfolio page, not just like, I'll add some few images on the bottom or I'll take that one off. Like I actually kind of looked through it, and I've been trying to go through the website with a much more fine tooth comb and really kind of overhaul stuff, because it has been a good couple of years before I've had the space to do that stuff. And I always feel, I don't know about anybody else, but with obviously when you're working on a website which is live, the second that you hit that save button in the corner, whatever changes you've made have gone live. Is that I feel that I can't start like a website task on something like the about page or the portfolio page, or particularly the home page, until I know that I've got time to sit down and do all of it in one go. Where in the middle of a wedding, just to go, I need to shove some images, or just change this piece of copy, if I do it and break it, then that's a much bigger task which I haven't got time to fix. But to almost know, do you know what? If it ends up taking 2 days to just get this website update done, I've got that time. Or if it goes wrong, I've got time to fix it. And it's nice to kind of be almost guilt-free to get to those tasks without feeling that there's people sat there pining for their edits, which you're not doing because you're working anxiety.
No, I get what you mean. I think, it's a good time to obviously, we've spoken about it before, but obviously to make those changes and stuff. And part of that is because it's guilt-free. You don't have that low-level anxiety. But so I've done a couple of weddings already. One of them absolutely chucked it down for the entire day. No. And it was a typical, like what you'd expect for a February wedding. Luckily they planned for it and had lots of like music and things like that, which really kind of kind of made the day. They had, music during reception drinks, they had music during dinner, and they had a band in the evening.
Wow. So all of the music and live music as well.
And live music, yeah. So they specifically said, like, we know there's a good chance it'll rain, so we've like put minimal stuff in, like, into having stuff outside, minimal effort into having stuff outside, and instead we've gone for music, and we're going to make our ceremony as long as possible. So we've got a celebrant, we've got like they had readings, they did personal vows, and they did some cool things during the ceremony as well. So they did rock, paper, scissors for who's going to do their personal vows first, which is really cool. And they also did a secret ring bearer. So essentially, they gave the wedding coordinator the rings and was like, sellotape these to a random chair.
In my snowy wedding in November, the wedding that they did the same, and it ended up being the bride's uncle, and it was great. Yeah,
it's such a cool idea. Because often it's someone that doesn't want to do it, like when it's like a best man or something, they're just like, it's kind of a job they have to do, right? But if it's like a surprise one, like chances are it end up being someone who's quite excited to be part of the wedding. But
also as well, like, as a couple, you plan the day, and so although you don't host the day, you still know there's very few surprises on your wedding days, and there may be like what the best man's going to say in the speech or something, but for the most part, you plan it to play out a certain way. Or I imagine it's quite nice to have something for you, which is it embraces that element of kind of like the unknown, doesn't it? Where you give it to them, and you don't know who's going to sit in that seat, so it could be anybody, excuse me, that's going to be that person. So it's quite nice for them that there's still that element of surprise, which I think that's what I like about it. Because I think there's a lot of people or a lot of couples that they like that idea of planning everything to perfection, so they know exactly what's going to happen. Where I quite like the spontaneity of that.
Being surprised by your own planned day, basically. I think it ended up being the hairdresser who was also their friend. She'd literally kind of like sorted herself out, sat down on the chair, and ended up being the ring bearer as well.
Because you imagine if she didn't sit down, make it to the seat in time, and then was like, no, they're not under my chair. There's an empty seat that was left.
Well, one of the chairs has been swapped around.
They're going to stack them later on. Someone stuck something to the bottom of this chair.
But my one was completely opposite. It was one of the shortest ceremonies I'll ever do, and it was one of the sunniest days that I'll probably do this year as well. Crazy, it was like sunny from start to finish. They had a flash mob at the end during their dancing, which is a lot of fun. So basically, I think that the bride and her friends are like dancers. So they planned this whole thing. They went to like a town hall or something to go and rehearse it a few days before it was that like sort of is that planned out. I think with the groomsmen and stuff, they kind of just did their own thing a little bit. But like the bride and the bridesmaids had like a proper routine going on.
So when did they have it in the day?
So it was about half an hour after the first dance.
Okay, so it was in the evening. Because I always wondered whether you do that, like, like imagine a venue kind of everyone stood around in the courtyard, like having drinks during like cocktail hour, and all of a sudden, like all these people just run into the middle, and like I was, that would be really like
that'd be quite cool.
That the element of surprise in that moment would be good, but then the chances of one of the flash mob needing to be in a toilet or doing a group photo or something would be
No, it was good because they let the dance floor die out and then they brought it back again. You know how the first clever, wave of dancing left.
So they almost controlled the energy of the dance floor even more by having that in the evening.
She went and got changed, came back. Then they sort of like either turned up the music or turned on something that they know is going to get people on the dance floor. And then people started like slowly shuffling back, and then they did this. And so I'm really looking forward to like putting that together. And I've also got some BTS of it on the metas as well, which I'm quite excited to have a look at.
I think it's worth talking about the metas. Obviously, I had my first wedding of the year. In March. And
for reference, these are Ray-Ban metas.
The really sunny day. And obviously I bought my metas late last year and only got to use them at my last couple of weddings of the year. So I'm really trying to make that effort at the moment that they are going to be a staple of my workflow this year. And so I had mine on intermittently during the day. And I think it just kind of goes to show that even like just having the ability to harness that stuff does make a big difference. So I shot a wedding at essentially a mill. It was like a pub, which used to be a mill house. So it has a river going through underneath the venue and back out to the side. So by proxy, there were ducks everywhere, which is the couple, like, they embraced the ducks. But then there was just some of these ducks just kind of stood by the entrance. So we came out after the ceremony to do confetti. And there's like a little boy who then the ducks thought the bags of confetti were duck feed. So then there ended up being like 3 or 4 ducks stood in the middle of the confetti aisle. So then the couple came bowling down. And as they walked through the confetti, these ducks obviously thought they were going to get trampled on and like flew up like out of the, like in front of the couple and flew off into the distance. Which luckily I managed to keep shooting through and got 2 or 3 frames of these ducks like moving past the couple in midair. But be able now to harness that content of not only for the couple, I'll give them the footage as well, so they've kind of got that unique moment kind of captured. But for me to have that as BTS content, where the photo is cool and I put it in a carousel with the sneak peeks, and it was like the 4th or 5th photo in the carousel, but everyone was like, the ducks, the ducks.
Photo,
and that's the photo. But to be able to have that as a piece of content, to go, here's the video and then here's the frames afterwards. Like, I'm really hoping that that's going to be, it's going to make a really engaging piece of content for a wedding that from the outside was just a lovely wedding. Like, there wasn't a flash mob planned, or there wasn't like anybody arriving by helicopter. Like, it was just like, on paper, it was just going to be a really lovely day, which is totally fine. And that's all that I expect any of my weddings to be. And it just goes to show that you can find unique moments in anything if you've got the ability to capture them.
Yeah, or maybe you can post that and collaborate the capture code, and we can everyone can
it can be a learning piece. Yeah, cool. Once it comes out, obviously once I actually get around to editing the gallery, you'll see the rest of the photos from that. But
because we talk about it quite a lot, and I put the metas a lot on my Instagram as well, so I get tons of questions about them over messages, and I think the 360 camera is the best way to do BTS, but in terms of like wanting to not edit all of that 360 footage for a start, but then also stay unobtrusive, not have something hanging off my camera, the metas are the best way to, it doesn't get you in it. I think that's the main problem with it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for getting BTS content, it's the most unobtrusive, easy way to do it.
But I think if you do a good enough job of being personable on your socials, and the fact that you can hear your voice and stuff like that, people know that is a PR, especially like with photo. For me, obviously, you can see your camera moving and see you doing your job. That I don't think they always need to see your face, or I would rather have that pure point of view of the moment. Because sometimes I think the 360 is really good in that it gives you such a fail-safe, because you can move the angle and you can see everything.
Yeah,
it all looks so alien because of the angle of it. Like, you would look really weird, and then everything else looks really distorted and stuff. So it's hard to kind of put yourself in the moment.
Yeah.
Where I think where the metas are essentially, they're seeing what you're seeing.
Yeah.
It kind of really harnesses that POV into something much more authentic.
Feels more documentary.
Yeah.
Because you can see them walking into a room.
I like it. Yeah. Or I do remember something, if I record them and then I'm like wandering around where the pans are like super like swinging and really fast, that you probably feel a little bit seasick if you watch that stuff. But just for like, say, completely like confetti or first dances or moments where you know stuff's going to play out, I think they're the best thing for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll be very popular this year. And even the people I've mentioned them to, and like we know a couple of people who have gone out and bought them since we've got them, and I think they will start spreading. And again, like, it's because they're easy. People have tried 360. People have tried the Insta360 Go that slaps onto your chest with a magnet, but it just never like gets the stuff that you want. And I feel like this is as close you're going to get to that FPV look.
And I think as well, there won't just be in our industry, across the whole of anybody that needs to make content. So I did a style shoot with some hair and makeup stylists earlier in the year, and I used them for that. Yeah. And like the lady who was like hosting the day, Liz, like she was saying, wow, that'd be so good for me. Because like she obviously when she is doing hair, she needs both of her hands, so she has to get someone to either put her phone on a tripod or to film her doing her thing.
Yeah.
But for her to literally be able to press a button and then you'd be able to literally see how she is styling and stuff, it literally almost feels like you can be in her head doing that. Or like I went and got tattooed a few weeks ago, and the guy who was on the tattooist on the bed next was saying, "Oh, I've got mine. They're brilliant." Because he was like, obviously my couples pay me my clients pay me by the hour to shoot or to work for them. If I have to then stop, take my gloves off, like take some BTS or of their tattoo in the progress, then stop, wash my hands, glove back up again. It's like that's time out of the time they're paying me. Or also it's then effort, it's cost on the gloves and all of that. Where he was like, I've just got my Meta Smart thing set up, so I'm working away, and you just go, oh hey Meta, can you take a video of this? And it just starts.
I think you can do that. Can you?
Yeah,
do you use that?
I don't use it, but you can set up a voice prompt on it now.
Yeah.
That you can get it to voice prompt to start videos. You can ask it questions and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's like, how easy is that?
Yeah.
Like I've not even got to stop what I'm doing.
I was talking to a magician about it. Shout out to James.
Yes, James. Yeah, he's a listener.
He's a listener. Yeah.
Why didn't we get a voice note from James? He's been great.
Yeah, I know. To be fair, we should have.
James, sort it out.
And he was saying, like, I was saying, it would be really good to get reactions of him, like him doing the trick and then getting the reactions, and you literally have that POV of everyone going, oh, that kind of stuff. So that would be amazing.
Because they're alwa's looking at you, aren't they, with the card in your hand and doing whatever you're doing.
So anyone in our industry could use it, and I think
you'd have to be a good magician, though, wouldn't you? Imagine if you found yourself out. Like,
yeah, you posted a reel. Oh, that's how you do it. Oh
man.
But yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about AI, and I wanted to run this past you and the people obviously listening to the pod as well, because I thought that I'd come across something which was amazing and really forward thinking for videography, and I got absolutely slated for it in the UK Wedding Videographers group. And I think well, I want to get onto Facebook groups a little bit later when the voice notes come, because I have quite a strong opinion on them. But so essentially, Imagine, who edit photos for photographers, are now going to come out with a AI color grading tool for videographers.
Okay. So how does it work compared to? I know a couple of episodes ago you spoke about an app, didn't you, where you could almost feed it, go, I want my footage to look like this film, and it would do it. Does it work in a similar vein to that, or is it more in the way that Imagine works with photo, in that you almost feed it some of your like so many minutes of footage you've already graded, and it does it that way?
Let's pretend I did my research,
okay,
and say that it probably works in the same way that this one does. I imagine it's based on the same sort of thing that this one does. So you can emulate a shot, you can shot match. You can have it so that it replicates your style, that kind of thing, right? Okay. It's only coming out for Premiere Pro. I'm assuming it'll work the same way that.
So basically, it's not on Resolve. You don't care.
I didn't read it because
it's a Premiere Pro.
I must admit, as soon as I saw Premiere Pro, I clicked off and posted on the group just for thought of what it would help. But yeah, so in my eyes, this is a tool that can save you whatever it is. Like some people spend half a day on color grading. Some people I know spend an hour or two. I have a preset that I put over the whole thing, like a film, and then I go through each individual clip and adjust it from there. Yeah. And it probably takes me an hour for a film, and then 10, 20 minutes for a ceremony of speeches, that kind of thing, to do color grading. So not long at all. But add that up across the year, and it's a fair bit, right? So, and that's a repeatable task that once you've nailed your grade, the creativity in that grade then gets taken away, because you've pretty much you've done it, right? This is your style, and there's like that.
Same with the photographer, the preset. Once you've kind of got that to a degree, it needs tweaking across different lighting scenarios.
Yeah.
But the base of that preset is the same.
Yeah. So I thought, this would be great. Like, save some time, get AI to do that bit for you, and then you can focus more on the creative stuff. Posted it on the Videographers group. Oh my God, some of the comments say, learn how to color grade, mate. Why would I need this? This is ridiculous. This is going to take our jobs, all of this lot.
Yeah.
And I genuinely thought people would be really happy to have a tool to help them, but they weren't. And I wondered what you guys think listening to this, whether you would use something like this, or whether it's an insult to your creativity, and B, whether you think as a photographer looking on from the outside that, this is probably what photographers were like when Imogen first came in, right?
But at the same time, I don't understand why it hasn't been available up to now. Like, whether you agree with using Imagine or whatever, and I think a lot of people that are the quickest people to slate it are people that don't use it.
Yeah, definitely.
In some ways, morally, I guess, I have a bigger problem with the pre-loaded profiles in Imagine than the concept of using AI to color grade your work. Because for me to make my profile that looks like my work, I had to feed it a minimum of 5,000 edited raws when I started.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have a style, or you didn't have a look, you couldn't use it. You had to almost do that foundation work and build a look. Coming off. You had to kind of build that look and find your style first. And then once you'd built the hard thing to create a unique look, Imagine just helps you roll it out and provide consistency with it. But then when they kind of get big industry names on to go, you can use their profile.
Yeah.
Someone that then had literally just downloaded the app and never edited any of their own work in their life could go, I want my work to look like this person's, and almost steal their, albeit they probably got paid to be an ambassador or whatever.
Yeah.
Where I think if that was the same, if you said you've got to feed it so many films first for it to learn your look, all it's doing is just taking a repeatable task away.
Yeah.
But if you go on there and it's got, the Chris Spice profile, you could make your work look like mine if you click this button or do whatever. That then I feel that you are more, it leaves people that have worked really hard on their color grading more open to having their look stolen, I guess.
Yeah, I think that was some of the reservation that I got in the comments was, why are you going to download this and copy someone else's color grade? Well, I've spent years doing my color grade just for someone to get this crappy app and copy it. And I get that, like, there is going to be an element
people
of that.
Sell lots, right?
Especially,
Same thing, someone to sell presets, isn't it? Like,
but especially as, like you say, you can probably do that in Imagine, and also with this color grading app that I mentioned before, you could probably screenshot someone's video and make it shot match it. So yeah, I do understand that, but I believe that most people, or at least people listening to this who are forward thinking, have already or will be creating their own presets and styles that they would train it on. I don't imagine most people listening to this are thinking, I can steal someone's grade, buzzing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, while there's always going to be some questions about it, I think in the end that those tools are going to separate the grinders who are up at 2 a.m. versus someone who's working smarter and
exactly. And I'm sure if you dive into the AI episode that we did, and I'm sure there'll be at least one more this year. If that's it, if you want to sit there and I use the words be a martyr, like, and we go, I'm gonna load every image into like Photoshop one by one and color grade them individually, because that, I believe, that is how it should be done. Fair enough, you can say that makes you an artisan or whatever or the rest of it, but also I think it also means that your work's going to lack consistency. You need to work on stuff as a whole, or if anything, and I've said this to people that have asked me about Imagine, if anything, it's helped me make my preset, which I built, even more consistent across the board. Because as a wedding, over a course of a wedding day, or even the course of a year that you're shooting weddings, you are going to shoot in really bad light and really good light, really bright light, really cold light. So to have kind of a colour look, which then the AI can help you provide that consistency, rather than you having to spend hours in tint sliders kind of making that look as the same as it can across everything. I think that's just a worthwhile spend, because you've still spent time creating that look, haven't you? That's you've done the groundwork of it, and you've just got, and for years or for centuries, there's been people that are famous painters who got like their understudies to paint all their backgrounds in and block them in. So it's nothing new. It's just, that's just how it works, isn't it?
I'll die on that hill again. Like I haven't used Imagine, right? I kind of have. I tested it once, but obviously I'm not a photographer who does lots of it. But I'll die on the hill that if you're a photographer and you're not using Imagine for at least a certain percentage of your weddings,
or after shoot, or any of those AI,
then I think tools, it's only a detriment to your business. That like it's only worse for your business that you're not using it.
Or at the very least, getting a look that you're happy with, saving it as a preset in Lightroom, because there's probably some people that still don't do that. That still sit there and do that. And I'd like to think not, but there might be some people out there which are still kind of going, well, I do this and I do that and I do that. It's just have some sort of base preset saved. And even if you stamp that across on import and tweak from there, and don't be afraid to experiment and to change your style. I don't think it would do that, but that is a repeatable task, which is gonna rapidly lose you hours.
I spoke to a photographer last year who I was talking about Gen Fill, and they went, "Oh, Gen Fill, don't use that. I still like to do it myself. There's no way." And I was like, "Oh, you're just going to Gen Fill that fire extinguisher out?" And they were like, "No, I'm going to clone it out myself and I'm going to go around it because I don't trust all of that AI." And I was like, my jaw literally hit the floor. I was like, "No way you're going to do that when you could literally click and it would be gone in a second."
For me, particularly in the visual industry, surely it's for them to most of the degree, it's about end result. If you can do the Gen Fill and it looks the same as you doing the clone thing,
it's not in creativity. It's just getting rid of a.
Like for me to go do it myself would be to move the damn fire extinguisher in the first place. That's the most physical. And I must admit, over time, I've definitely in the early years of my career wasted hours of my life where I've seen a beer bottle be left on a wall behind a set of group photos and go, I'll just Photoshop it out. And then when I've got to that Photoshop in time, I'm going, I've got to take it out of 40 group photos. This is a pain in the arse. Where I could have just gone and knocked the bottle off the wall and be done with it. And then not have to done it at all. That's for me that's the manual labour part of it. But if you can find something like that you can do, and I know I spoke in I think it was the last episode, wasn't it, about Gen Fill and saying that it didn't take across grain very well, or there was times that it didn't match up exactly to what I wanted. Sometimes you do have to go and do it the old-fashioned way with a clone brush. But for the 99% of the stuff, Gen Fill will do it better than you can. Don't waste your time on it.
Yeah, easy.
I still, though, the thing that still annoys me, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about this because it's completely unrelated, is the fact now that you have to have Gen Fill credits, though, in your Adobe account. That really, really annoys me.
So even if you pay for the subscription?
So depending on what subscription you have, that gives you a set amount of Gen Fill credits per month.
So could you, if you use Gen Fill every wedding, could you get through without paying for credits? Or would you...
I think, and again, it only came in towards the end of last wedding season.
All right.
So I'm not at a point where I've been doing significant enough amounts of editing. But I think that I only pay, I think it's about £10 a month for the photo package. So I get Lightroom, Photoshop and Bridge. That's all I pay for Adobe. And I think because I pay at that level, they only give me 250 Gen Fill credits a month.
Okay. So every Gen Fill is
every time
credit.
that I use a Gen Fill, I believe that's one credit.
Even if it turns out wrong and you don't like it?
I believe so. I need to look into properly, but they're going to give you a thing now. And what happens when you run out? If you've got the ability to buy more, or you have to buy more, or how it logs them off, or whether it's the same in Lightroom as it is in Photoshop, I don't know.
Right.
But if you go into your Adobe account now, you will see that you have a set amount of Gen Fill credits. And I think if you have the bigger account, if you pay for InDesign, Illustrator, and Prep, you might have more credits because you're paying more money per month.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be in the end, if you're someone which is using Gemfill a lot, or particularly using chunks of Gemfill to create, kind of images or whatever, you are going to get through them.
Yeah. I'm quite excited to do another AI episode, like another few months down the line, because I think.
But maybe we should both go away and do our research. To talk about. You can find out about this video thing, and I'll find out the actual parameters of it. But I've noticed that you think if I was editing say 5 weddings a month, I could be editing somewhere in the region of nearly 4,000 to 5,000 photos, even if I only used. That means that I can only use Gemfill in probably less than 10% of each gallery before I'd run out of credits.
Yeah. And you guys know that I can't go an episode without talking about it, but DaVinci Resolve has just updated, or is just about to update DaVinci Resolve 20, and there's a lot of AI features in there I want to talk about, but we won't do it in this episode because it's going to be really long already.
Does that do Gemfill?
Yeah, no. Unfortunately not. But yeah, so also I want to talk about the retreat that I did.
Okay, yeah.
Because again, it was like a few weeks ago now, but that was just such a big part of the last few weeks as well. So essentially, Rue hosts. He has. We get they get like an Airbnb, and everyone stays there for a couple of nights, and it's a load of videographers who all sort of join up together. That happens every year, and sort of it's a learning experience. It's a chance to show each other your films and get feedback on them. And this year I got invited along, which is really, really nice, and got to spend a couple of days with some people who absolutely love in the industry and some people I've met and who I consider friends. And I
thought you were going to say someone I don't like in the industry then, and I was like, come on then.
And some people I'm not so keen on. No, and that was just a really cool experience because again, it's like part of these coder things and these summits is that the networking and the being around people is probably, we agree, one of the best bits about the whole thing. And this almost feels like it's focused on it because you're literally in the same house for 2 days and you're around the dinner table together. There's set times for reviewing films, so we all sit around in the sofa, watch each other's films, and give each other feedback, which is again, everyone there is at the top of their game, right? So the feedback is stuff that, do the couples really care? I'm not sure. But we're all trying to be that little bit, that 1% better, right? So yeah, all of that was really helpful. It was an enjoyable couple of days. I had to travel to Manchester for it, or almost Manchester. So it was a bit it was a bit of a trek, but it was really fun to have met some people that I hadn't met before. And show my film to a few people who I really respect and get some feedback.
I think it's just it's amazing that these things exist. I remember Rue when we had him on for his episode. If you haven't listened to that episode, which Rue recorded with us just before he started Coda, wasn't he, or just about to start Coda? Go back into the archive. It's a really great episode. And he talked in there about having this retreat thing. And I think at the time I likened it to saying that one of the things that there's not loads of things that I loved about doing photography at uni, but going in for those critiques where you within your projects you would sit around a table with the people in your class and go, this is the work that I'm working on, and then your lecturer would go, okay, maybe look at this person for inspiration, and someone would go, oh, I don't really like that, and you'd have this kind of open table to share your work, and other people to kind of offer you advice on it. Where if you go to, and we're going to get onto the summit in a minute, these places and kind of conferences, they're great for getting inspiration and seeing how these kind of say amazing photographers at the top of their game, the work they show and the things they use. But to actually be able to show somebody your work and go, can you give me some feedback on the actual nitty gritty or the technicalities of this or the whatever of that, that'd be so invaluable, I think, to have that with, and particularly even then if the people that are giving you that feedback are people that you really respect and have kind of looked up coming into. So I think it's lovely that Rue's done that and made that even exists in the first place. And I'm glad that you got invited and it all really worked out. Yeah, it did. It was so fulfilling. And like you say, to get feedback on the video, I sort of showed a long film because I feel like sometimes my long films become too repeatable, and I wanted to make sure that I was being held accountable for the quality of them, kind of thing. And I didn't want to just submit a Como film and that kind of thing. Well, I feel like a lot of people, if you're in those rooms, you want. Also, it's really easy, isn't it, to want to show what you feel is your best film. Yeah, be like, look at but then films, everyone go, oh, it's lovely, oh, it's amazing. But you don't really learn so much from that, do you? Like we said, those weddings that you do where things don't go your way, you probably are far more of a testament to your skill or your integrity as a photographer or a filmmaker. So to almost take one of those films and go, well, even when I didn't maybe have loads to play with on the day, I still managed to make this. I think that's probably is a much better learning situation, isn't it? Definitely, yeah. And there was a couple of little talks as well. So Aaron Kenny stood up and did a talk about AI, which, as much as a lot of the stuff that he spoke about, I probably
wouldn't implement into my own life and my own business. So a lot of it was about sort of recording yourself for a lot of the day, and getting AI to summarize it and give you to-do lists and things like that.
For me to record myself and what I say on a daily basis.
And that kind of, and you know, there is argument for it in terms of like getting to-do lists done and things like that. Yeah. And there's certainly when you're on calls, summarizing, actionables from calls and things like that is quite handy. And definitely, he's just released an AI course. Definitely go check that out, because I think it's pretty cheap, and it'll give you a lot of information on how to use AI for certain things. And I know that Aaron is very AI forward, and he's going to have that sort of leg up when it comes to as AI keeps increasing and keeps getting better. He's going to basically be using it as his personal assistant and I think that's the biggest thing. I think that someone said to me that about AI is that if you think of it as just kind of a robot which is here to take your job, that you're kind of afraid of or cautious of, you're never going to use it to its full ability. But as people which pretty much run one-person businesses, if you can open a page on a web browser and ask something a series of questions and almost turn it into a very low-paid but very efficient assistant, that would be brilliant. Like, the amount of times I've sat in front of client Zoom calls and had to make notes to keep up with what they're saying about schedules or this and that, where if I knew that I could just say to the couple, look, do you mind if I record this? And my little robot friend's going to make all the notes for me. And then within 5 minutes at the end of the call, it spat me out a summary of everything they've said. Yeah. Then why would I not use that? Yeah, 100%. So recommend having a chat to him about AI, and maybe looking at his AI sort of course product. And then also Bronte as well did a chat from Tinbox Memories about TikTok, which is something I think we all needed, because we all came out of that and was like, yeah, maybe we should do this then. And it's something that I've like stuck one toe into and gone, that ain't going to work for me. But her talk really encouraged me. She went into things like, the percentages of people who are in the age ranges that we target who are on TikTok, right? And it's impossible to ignore that. And although it's a bit of a slog to get seen and things like that, if you are consistent on there, like anything, I guess. So I came away from that thinking I need to start posting and give it like 6 months of 100% energy into TikTok to see if this works. We are 3 weeks later, and I've posted pretty regularly. I'm only using rehashed Instagram content, so I guess it's not 100% in yet, but that's what it's mostly going to be anyway. I've had, I guess, 2 inquiries from there. One really serious inquiry, which was for 3 years' time, so I did not take it because I don't take weddings that far in advance. But it was a really lovely inquiry. They really wanted me. And they still might come back in a year or 18 months' time. And and one which was just like a what are your prices kind of situation. But already that's better than what I was getting before. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And I think that's the thing for me. I went to Thrive, which I'll talk about briefly, because I ended up going to Scotland twice in a month. But there was a talk there last year from an amazing photographer called Esme Whiteside, and she did that, and then she did like a refresher of it this year. And again, she gets lots of her work from TikTok. And I think the thing that finds for me is now, as I maybe am getting a little bit older, is I've always caught these social media platforms and been a user of them first, and then used them as a business second. Had a Facebook account before I even set up in business. I loved Instagram and using Instagram, and then introduced it into my business, so that I felt like I had a good grasp of what it was because I used it. Where I don't feel now that I'm sat here at 37 years of age, that particularly maybe people of my age or demographic are on TikTok or using TikTok, but the younger demographic, of which I am targeting in my wedding business, probably are using TikTok. And if I don't start to learn it or move it, unless my age range of demographic of who I want to shoot weddings for moves with me, higher, I am going to isolate myself from marketing to a huge chunk of people that probably would book me. Yeah, definitely. And it's using, like, a lot of people that age are using it as a search engine as well. Like, even people sort of our age at this point are, I've been chatting to some friends of ours, and they've been saying, well, I go on TikTok and look up stuff rather than Google now. I'll either go ChatGPT or TikTok. And like, that's a huge to even hear. And I'd never really thought about using TikTok as a search engine. But when I got what I thought was sciatica, I looked up exercises. The first thing I did, because of Bronte's talk, is went on to TikTok and went, sciatica exercises, and there was loads, and it's been really, really helping. It turns out it's a similar thing. It's not actually sciatica, it's a similar thing, but the exercises still work. Now my mindset is slowly changing over to that sort of late millennial, early Gen Z mindset of, I'm going to go on TikTok and search it first before I search it on Google. And you can already see, I think that Instagram have already responded to that, and their algorithm is starting to change
to become much more search engine based rather than it finding you content. Now you can ask it things and it will serve you content you think you want to see. And that has taken note from the TikTok style. So I think now it's not almost, you're not having to learn almost a new thing anymore, a way of thinking. It's the way that you post content is going to much more or less be, what questions are people asking these search engines, and can the content I make be giving the answers to them?
Yeah, I think there's an episode in like TikTok and Instagram and how it's changed in a couple of months as well.
Maybe we'll have to get Bronte on, or we'll get someone
that'd be cool, actually.
Who's a TikToker. That's not the right word. And that's, I never know. Do you make a TikTok or do you make a tick, or
you make a TikTok? I think
it's just a TikTok.
I think that's the verb for it. Yeah.
In the same way that when you had Twitter, you used to tweet.
Yeah. What's the next though? Do you X?
I don't know.
Do you even X?
I don't want to do anything with that app anymore. I want to distance myself as far from X as I can at the moment.
Agreed.
So I think so. Now we're kind of moving on. I think we'll segue in nicely. Say in the month that we haven't recorded.
I just want to say, sorry, before you get into that Rue's been asked a few times how people can get on this retreat, and I think he's going to be doing some individual ones of those for different parts of the country.
Okay.
So look out for those on Coda and from Rue, because he will be doing things like that for people across the country.
Yes, if you are someone that does work alone, or you want that level of feedback from peers and stuff on your films, I think that's going to be probably one of the best ways that you can do that, isn't it? Or sat in that kind of open,
the most personal way to do it. Yeah.
Sorry, less scary anyway, isn't it? If you sat in an Airbnb with 6 others rather than asking for feedback.
It's nice. It's just more personal. Yeah.
I've lost my train of thought now.
Sorry.
In that month that we have been off recording, I've ended up going up to Scotland twice in a month. So I flew up. I got the train up to Edinburgh. Man, what a train that was! Like a 7-hour train to Edinburgh for Photography Farm's Thrive event. So most people that listen will know that I've been going to Thrive in its various forms for a good few years now. And last year, Lisa made the decision that rather than running the conference twice at the same time, she was going to split it and do a south event later in the year and then a northern event earlier in the year, which meant that the Brighton or London dates that I've been to at the past now weren't there, and the option was go to Edinburgh. So I did. I had a great time, and I actually put in here as well is that I think that travelling that little bit further to go to something like this, it required obviously a bit more investment. I had to get a really long train, I had to get a hotel and things like that. It made me so much more focused for the experience. And I say this about people going to weddings, that, people that travel to destination weddings, or people that kind of, you have to make that bigger degree of effort to get to someone's day. They're so much more engaged with you rather than if you just chuck your suit on and walk 10 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
I felt the same about the learning.
Yeah.
The fact that I'd gone to Edinburgh, and I hadn't been to Edinburgh for 10 years. I went on like a city break with my wife. And to be able to go and be like, I'm in a new city that I don't know, and I'm here just for this. Mm-hmm. So I really kind of felt like I maybe jumped into it or absorbed a lot more, or I'd wake up kind of thinking about the talk yesterday. And then on the second day, I actually got up and went for like a photo walk, like around Edinburgh, although it's a bit drizzly.
Yeah.
Because I was just there.
Because you were somewhere different.
Yeah, I was kind of somewhere different, and then that urge to kind of explore it. The fact that I was there for work, it felt nice to kind of be using a camera rather than I hadn't just taken myself off on holiday by myself to take photos.
Yeah.
It kind of wanted to get as much out of that experience as I could.
And it's an inspiring city, right? It's a really nice looking city, and it's
really
kind of the kind of place you turn up to and you're like, everything looks great. Yeah. You're out with your camera, then you go into the show and that kind of thing. So
it was really great to just be able to kind of to go, and I almost feel that it was worth traveling that little bit further for, because I think it made me, not that I haven't, I've not feigned interest in any of the others that I've been to, but even just really kind of, in the days leading up, it was a day of travel up for a 2-day conference and a day of travel back. So I almost had to block out an entire week of my calendar just to go to that event. And then literally have 2 weeks at home. And then obviously when we went back to Glasgow, we flew, which was a much speedier experience.
Why didn't you fly the first time? Did you just not?
It was really odd, and I never understand this. It was purely down to cost, really.
Okay.
For some reason, to fly from Southampton to Edinburgh was going to cost a lot more than it cost me to get the train. But then when we looked to get in the train to Glasgow,
it was the same.
It was the other way around. It was much dearer to get the train. And it's like, well, why am I going to spend more money and spend 7 hours on a train if I can fly in an hour and a half and it costs me less money?
Even with like split save and everything, it was relatively similar to get the train as it was to fly, even though apparently we paid too much for our tickets.
Yes.
But we won't get into that because
that's
I'm still bitter. So that leads us quite nicely onto your second trip to Scotland, which I went with you.
Yes.
And we went to That Wedding Videographer Summit.
As a photographer going to a videography conference, I saw more than a few screwed up faces and confused faces as to why I was there. I still think I was probably the only photographer that was there.
Yeah.
But I can almost say with some conviction that if I go next year, I won't be the only photographer there.
No, I kind of agree with you. Yeah.
I think it was, the format, the knowledge that was given, although it was obviously sold as a videography summit in the fact that it was hosted by Danny and Jace from That Wedding Videography podcast. And it's kind of, some of the speakers were all filmmakers.
Yeah.
There was so much to learn across the board.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of the talks applied to both, or could be applied to both. And like you say, the station breaks as well that they had with, website designers and copy and things that we'll get into. I think like all of that is useful for photographers as it is for videographers. And, as a photography set, I know that we've chatted just before this about, you were like, oh, maybe I'll take some clips at weddings and see if I can get some video and things like that. And it's like inspired you. And so we know from episodes that we've done recently about hybrid, that hybrid is we know that hybrid's trending, right? And so I think photographers who are thinking of getting into hybrid or are already doing it are going to get just as much value in it, in having those talks from those videographers, as well as meeting videographers and just seeing what we're actually doing. Because one thing being a photographer and being like, I watch videographers all the time, it must be pretty simple, standing in the background and shooting.
See, but I think the opposite, and I say now, I don't want to kind of jump ahead too much.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it was Joss's talk, which again, it's been on my mind for a while. After we did the episode with Hannah, I was like, it's interesting. I've seen other people do hybrid, and it's like, maybe like.
Yeah,
I fully understand the power of video and the things that it can reach that photo just can't. But then still, the idea of doing both on a day still seems a lot. I think for me, like I still want to keep. I wouldn't want to add any kit to what I do.
Yeah.
But I still want to do the video thing. Seeing and we've had this conversation. I've said in the past is that the idea of even owning a gimbal, I don't want to do that. The thought of having to balance it and do the walk and the dance, and I see videographers that I work with, kind of rushing around, slinging up tripods and doing this and that. It's like that's the bit that I don't want to do. Like,
that's the bit none of us want to do, Tom.
But to watch him go, most of my shots are. The movement comes to him and he's kind of locked off somewhere. Yeah. It's a really, really beautiful, really well thought of, well composed frame, and then the movement kind of plays out. I was like, maybe that is something that I can do, because essentially that's what I do as a photographer. Is I find a nice frame in a moment, I hit a button, where if I could then almost just take a little clip of that, and then I've got a series of these kind of static clips where the movement plays out. Yeah. Maybe that could become something.
He showed a lot of still frames, didn't he?
That was the big kind of light bulb for me, I think, to go, maybe that is something I could do.
Yeah, I mean, like his talk was great. He did a whole talk on cinematography and how different
cool
shots
guy.
Convey emotions. Yeah, it's the first time I've met Joss actually, and he's such a cool guy.
Like, we went to the pub, didn't we?
He knows his stuff, and
and obviously I didn't know who, apart from Adam, I obviously knew who Adam was. I didn't know who any of the other speakers were at all.
Yeah.
But obviously they all came walking down the stairs from where they'd been food, and I was like, that guy's a speaker. Like, you can just tell, someone was like his beard was like shining in the light, and he had like his like cool clothes on,
came in with energy,
and like literally like, he had that like big speaker energy as he came in. I was like, you're an important man.
I mean, there's a reason. I mean, he's doing bits in the industry right now. He's obviously got like the film. The film festival with the Lawsons and some other people, so he's growing quick, and you can tell why, because his films are incredible,
stellar,
and they're well shot, and that's I took away a lot from that, because I've never really considered myself a cinematographer. Like if you ask me, that would be the last word that I think of. I wouldn't tell you that I convey emotion with my shots. I can tell you that I convey emotion with my editing.
Yeah.
And to be reminded and told, like, you can actually convey certain emotions with these shots. Again, that's going to be now in the back of my mind while I shoot, and that has been that's going to be helpful going forward, I think. Because again, like when I'm shooting, I'm not thinking I need to convey emotion. Yeah. I'm thinking I need to capture this moment.
Yeah.
But when I'm editing, that's when I'm thinking, oh, how can I convey emotion? Yeah. But to have someone tell you, look, this shot and this framing and the person looking this way and these things all convey emotion, and I don't even set it up. It was naturally.
That. I think so those kind of things which are so subliminal until someone spells them out to you. That he talked about shots where he'll almost, if you say you've got like a bride looking out of a window, he'll actually put himself on one side so that he gets lots of shots of people almost looking back. So from looking from right to left.
Yeah.
That because in the Western market we read things left to right. A right to left look means they're looking back, almost back into the past.
Yeah.
So it allows you to do that. That's really clever.
Yeah.
It's in there,
that's a bit
isn't
stuck
it?
in my mind. Yeah.
But I think for me as well, that and the final slide of his talk, because his rise in the industry, from what I could gather from obviously not knowing who he was before, has been pretty quick. is that to remind yourself that we all have our own voice and our own unique creativity, and that, you know, it's almost you using the power of your voice to make your style. Like, you don't need to copy somebody else.
Yeah.
And there is, you know, people will relate with what you do and what you say. And I think that for people that are at the beginnings of their journey, when they probably go, oh, I just want to be another one of him.
Yeah.
To remind you, I was like, no, you do have power in your thought and in your voice. So embrace that. I think that was really, really good.
Yeah. This is a conversation I had with someone very recently, who I was chatting to them, and they were just like, you know, I feel like I need to do this, and I feel like I need to do that, and like I feel like I'm sort of confined to doing this. And I was like, mate, like, post what you want, and the people who love what you love will find you.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel like you're confined to something, then you're trying to impress someone that's not you. And I feel like that's that, isn't it? Find your voice. And we're so like, we talk about that a lot on this pod, I think, is your brand and your voice. As much as we call it a brand, it is your voice, and it is what you stand for. What do you stand for? What do you fall for?
We've both been to Hamilton recently, isn't it?
Yeah, and so another thing that really resonated with us, and again this podcast as well, and what we talk about, was Adam's talk.
Yes.
On
what a guy.
Client and couple experience. Adam is honestly the nicest guy, and I was really looking forward to his chat. Like, I'd got to properly talk to him at the retreat after meeting him at Coda, and yeah, like genuinely, like the most genuine, chilled, relaxed, like dude. So yeah,
that's it. Like, I feel that, you know, from the video podcast I listen to, nobody has a bad word to say about Adam. Everyone kind of looks onto him fondly.
Yeah.
I listened to his podcast as well with Howard, and so again, almost felt like when I saw him in the pub that evening that it was someone who was a familiar face, although that he'd never met us. And he came straight over, didn't he? Obviously, you guys had met before, but it was like, oh, Tom, like, I feel like I know you. And in the end, we ended up spending quite a little bit of time, didn't we? Kind of chatting and stuff, and we've messaged backwards and forwards. There's a great photo of me and you with Adam, isn't there, at the evening?
Catch sandwich.
What a moment as well. So and so I really loved. I think his talk was really good. And yeah, just getting to meet him, and again, it was worthwhile going to kind of put those names to faces as well. Yeah,
and his talk about like couple experience and like really honing in on that. And I like that it was a lot of that kind of stuff. And I said this about Coda as well, but it wasn't too like technical. No one really spoke about what gear they were using and things like that. But yeah, so he dived a lot into his couple experience and how he goes from sort of inquiry to booking, and a lot of it I resonate with his mindset and how he gets them on board. I don't think I would ever commit to meeting up with my couples unless they were really local to me. That's just not a bit of me. Again, I'm very work-life balance focused, and that's just something that's against my beliefs. But I do a Zoom call with every couple, and I make sure they know it's because I want to get to know them and like really create the story about them and that kind of thing. And he was saying about how he meets up with his couples, and really hones in that like personal experience. And once you meet up with them, they're so much more likely to resonate with you.
Definitely. I think it's and we talk about this at length, don't we? So I felt that I did really enjoy his talk, but in terms of kind of taking any sort of groundbreaking revelations from it, I think a lot of the things are things that we spoke about or probably already do already.
Yeah.
But I know that there are a lot of people that don't, or again, allowing you to be yourself and people booking you for that, and almost what better way than actually sitting in front of them in a cafe or whatever.
Yeah.
But I will say though, the toilet trick, genius.
I was thinking
I'm not going to give the game away if you didn't go. You have to do the learning yourself. But when that came up, there was a light bulb going off above my head, and I was like, "You're a smart man, aren't we?" Yeah.
We'll get him on the pod to talk about it.
That's it. Yeah. Talk about the toilet.
And then he can go home. Again, like he gave a lot of information. He even gave his actual reply email as well. Yeah. And in an industry where you don't actually, unless you're out there sort of sending fake inquiries to other people, you don't know how other people are replying. And a lot of the time, people, if you're not getting the bookings, it's because people are replying better than you are.
Yes.
And I spoke to a couple recently, and we got very candid basically on this chat with the couple, and they were saying about how they messaged other suppliers and inquired other people, and the reply was like, "Yep, well, prices are on the website," and then that was, "I'm available, prices are on the website," or "I'm available, here's my brochure," and you kind of think you need to give them next steps or something to do, right? Like let's meet up, or show a bit of interest in their wedding. You can't just say, "I'm available, here you go."
I think that's it, isn't it? Is getting an inquiry isn't a mark on how well you're doing. It shows you've probably got a good website, or you're good at converting people enough to get them to it initially. Reach out.
Your brand's good, your market's
good. But
good.
it's how you convert after that, which I think is a true mark of how well that you do with kind of explaining your processes, how personable you are, and that's when the experience really kind of ramps up, isn't it? Beyond the kind of base selling level on your site.
For sure. So we also had Greg doing a chat as well. So he stood up and spoke about social media, and it's something that I've been following him for a while, and I really admire his presence on social media. And the thought that like, he gets up every day and makes his coffee and posts it on social media, and then he's always got like, like talking to camera, like Instagram stories and things like that. And I know we should all do it, and we all try. But I feel like he's someone that's got it nailed. He's even got a BTS man that follows him around.
This was amazing because obviously I remember reading his name and having a rough. And then when we were on the plane going up, I was sat in the airport and I was scrolling. Obviously, the guys from the summit were sharing loads of stories of people descending on Scotland for the event, and two and two didn't go together that he was a speaker. And he put a story up of him stopping at a service station on the drive up from Liverpool to buy himself a really expensive coffee at a service station. And then he turned around and obviously had the guy just on the side of the road with him. And I was like, who's this guy? Yeah. He's just coming to the summit and he just randomly got a man to follow him around. And then it wasn't until we got to the summit and he stood up and then the guy followed him. And I was like, oh, he's the guy. It was just bizarre. But I think, to have that as like a real practice what you preach and like have someone there to do full BTS of his whole journey to being a speaker and the rest of it was quite cool.
But Greg spoke for a while, and I feel like I could listen to him talk about that stuff for a lot more. I feel like he had a lot more to say, and I really want to know what he had to say.
I think this is it. I met him before and afterwards, and I thought he was a lovely, lovely guy. I think that was it. Public speaking is hard. I don't think it's for everybody. And I think there was a bit where kind of he lost his train of thought because some of the beginning of his speak was similar to the stuff that Adam covered, and that flustered him. And the bits that he managed to get out, I think, were some really good gold. I maybe like to have seen more examples of it, or I've gone back and watched some of his reels afterwards to kind of get his point. But I think again I think if anything, he wanted to give so much value that in the end the talk went on a little bit, and then maybe got a little bit flustered and maybe didn't get all of his points out. But even if I think he felt a little bit deflated about how it went. But if anything, for me, it sold me to a point. It's like, well, if I never need help in that area, I'd 100% buy a course from him or whatever. And almost, because I think he's got so much to say.
He's definitely not a gatekeeper. And the fact that they got 45 minutes or whatever, and he wanted to cram as much of that in as possible, it makes you think like, if you were considering a mentoring thing with him, and you weren't really sure about it, to see him literally try and cram all of that into his first talk, like that I think it's his first one that he's like stood up on stage and done, to see him try and cram all that into that for all those people. If you did a mentorship with him, that he would put as much into it as possible, and he would not hold back stuff for himself.
The thing that amazed me the most as well is that obviously he had a slide where it showed his growth on Instagram by doing a mixture of showing up to camera, sponsored ads, and the rest of it. Is that how fast that growth is if you really know what you're doing? Because I think he had 4 slides, didn't he? And each of them were about 4 to 6 months apart. And in them, it felt like his following jumped by thousands.
Dramatically,
But his post numbers weren't going up. Like if you think, in order to get these big numbers, you've got to be showing up like daily. I think there was, in the last 2 slides, there was something like 32 posts difference. But it gained him almost 7,000 or 8,000 more followers. So it's like, that's a smart guy. Do you know what I mean? Or he clearly now really knows his stuff in that area. And if you want to grow on social media, that was what really opened my eyes. I was like, I don't show up enough. Or I'm not posting enough. I post stories, I think I'm fairly active, but I'm not posting enough content to warrant getting that following. And it's like, well, maybe you don't have to. You just need to know what you're putting on.
Agreed. And as someone who I've posted usually twice a week regularly for like a couple of years, stories I'm relatively active on and stuff, but my growth on like followers wise is really slow. So he's someone I'd like to chat to about why that might be, and if I'm like doing something wrong, and I probably will like get some mentorship with him or something, because I think that talk at least proved to me that he knows his stuff and he ain't going to hold back.
And I think whilst we spoke to him at the end, and he was saying, I got flustered, and I don't think he for a first go, I don't think he was as proud of it, or he felt that he didn't maybe deliver as much as of what he wanted to, or didn't get all the points across that were on his piece of paper. Like, I don't even know if he even listens to this, but I would like to say to him is don't feel disheartened by it, because from someone that didn't even have a clue who you were before, you got a follower out of me and convinced me that you really do know your shit. I think it was if maybe even if it wasn't super succinct, it was super endearing and really showed how much value he wanted to give.
Yeah, no one's judging you. We're not up there doing it. It must be well difficult. Yeah. But at the same time, like, you smashed it. Tried to cram as much information into there. You gave a lot of people a lot to think about, and that's what matters, right? So,
exactly. And also, it was a big audience. I think that's worth saying. Yeah. Like, before we kind of jump straight into the speakers, but for a first event, some people I think are always more cautious to go, I'll see how this one goes, see what the videos are like, and maybe I'll go to next year. But to get like 120, 130 people in a space like that for a first event, I think, and also be run incredibly smoothly, I think that shows kind of just how much work they've put into it and how much of a success that it was.
Definitely.
And that's before we even get to Matt Johnson.
Yeah. Matt Johnson. So the celebrity was in town. So obviously at the summit they had Matt Johnson. He was talking. He went on last, didn't he?
Yes.
Which is kind of a good thing, I think.
I think he was the headliner, wasn't he? Though.
Yeah. But I think if he went first, because of the style and the way he presents and everything, it would have made everyone else's just look a bit slower.
Yeah.
And not like everyone else's was bad, but obviously he's like, that's his thing, right?
Yeah.
That his thing is he's American as it is, so that's a head start. But then he's got that sort of really extroverted, outgoing personality. He gets announced on stage. He does a jump onto the stage, like runs around it, that kind of thing. Instead of stood by his laptop with the microphones coming out of like the lectern, he grabs the handheld and is like walking up and down. He's getting crowd interaction.
He was lunging at one moment.
Yeah. He just he just knew his stuff, right? And although like we kind of said that it was probably 5 minutes of information in 45 minutes, it was nothing that couldn't have been on one slide probably. I think that he delivered it in such a way that it was engaging from start to finish, and it's something that I've definitely taken on board, and I know a lot of other people have as well.
I think it was almost kind of the opposite, wasn't it, of Greg's, where Greg tried to pack in so much information that in the end he was kind of having to really kind of go fast, is where he made probably like say 1 or 2 points and just stretched it out, but it wasn't in a way then that it almost felt boring, just because he has personality, doesn't he? And I think I sensed that buzz of like, Matt Johnson's here, Matt Johnson's here, from the other videographers. And I was a bit, and his YouTube handle, for people who don't know it, is Who is Matt?
Yeah, you must have been so confused.
And that was literally my question. I was like, well, who is Matt? Like, everyone's going on about this, like this bearded American dude who's like, oh my God, Matt Johnson, oh my God, Matt Johnson. I was like, I've never heard of him. Before with the summit, I'd watched some of his videos on the lead up, but didn't quite get the massive hype. But thoroughly entertained, and just what a guy! Like, just what a personality.
Yeah.
I
mean, his everything is cracked up to be. Like, it was nice to have a chat with him. He's a very funny guy in real life as well. And I'm not one to like idolize people or put them on a pedestal, but I think with Matt, with Matt Johnson, he's been around since pretty much most of us started, right? Yeah. He was the guy who you'd go on YouTube and watch his gear reviews and wedding related tips and things like that. And so like he deserves the respect in the same way that like a lot of people from the UK come up on Adam Wing's course.
Yeah.
They also watched Matt Johnson on YouTube. And so they're people who have been around since the very start of a lot of people's journeys. Yeah. And so it's easy to be like to really appreciate those kind of people.
And I think the good thing as well is that, and not that I've ever seen too much of it, is that he genuinely seemed to be loving life being there. Yeah, like, you hear sometimes of these like kind of conferences where, someone appears on stage under the spotlight with their little mic on, they do their talk and then, they're off out the back door and on to the next thing or whatever, where he was there all day, wasn't he? Like, his wife was there doing some filming for him, but like between every gap in the station breaks, he was about, and I saw he had people wanting to come up and just say thank him for being there or for, the help that he's given them in his YouTube videos. And like, I think he took a selfie with pretty much most of the people there, but he was really happy to just be amongst everybody and just kind of take it in as well and enjoy being there. It wasn't as if he like was in his hotel till 20 minutes before his talk, came in, delivered his thing and gone again. Yeah. Like, he seemed to really want to enjoy the experience of being there.
He integrated the night before, he integrated during the day, he stayed till the very end. Like,
he was first on the dance floor in the evening as well, wasn't he? Watching him and Jason dance.
He might be the only one on the dance floor.
But what a guy.
So that was obviously all of the speakers, and I just wanted to like shout them all out individually rather than just saying, oh, speakers were good, because like, again, if we're going to talk about the summit, we don't want to just scrape over it, because it's something that is huge for our little corner of the industry. And I think it's important to talk about how each part of it helped as well. And obviously we had station breaks as well. So we had different sort of non-photography and videography sort of suppliers So we had Sophie Amelia from Loyal Studios, who has designed a lot of like our friends' websites and things like that. So she's a fantastic website designer. Highly recommend looking into her.
Yeah, I think she's rapidly becoming sort of the go-to, isn't she, in our industry? If you really are looking at leveling up or having a rebrand and something, now that she's obviously rebranded herself from Sophie Amelia Designs into Loyal Studio, that she really can take on all of that rebrand and stuff as well. And I can almost
say... She's the only one that I know who, if I was going to go to a website, like go to get a website built, she's the only one that I know who does it. So
And after we had a really lovely in-depth chat with her after a super early flight, like we put the world to rights in the doorway of Southampton Airport, didn't we? That I can almost say like that she would definitely be a future guest on this podcast as well.
I'd love to have her on. And it'd be really interesting to talk about something a bit like something that we're not. Well, I mean, not that we're experts in anything, but something that she knows a lot into and can educate us on, as well as like talk to you guys about. And so that was really cool. We both got our websites. She looked at both of our websites and gave us some advice and things to change. We also had John Carpenter from Carpenter Copy, who was going through people's websites and giving them advice on their copy, which is something that I think is becoming a lot more important in this day and age. I think your copy is almost as important now as the work that you produce when it comes to your
probably
website.
Anything more so. I think we spoke about this, haven't we, MC, that although whilst we probably will make very beautiful work and very appealing work, we're still filming or photographing the same thing. So it's, we were talking about Joss a minute ago about using your voice, is that, to have a copywriter on board to help you kind of refine that voice and present it in a kind of very kind of appealing way is important.
Definitely, yeah. And then you had like headshots, which we didn't actually get a chance to do.
The queue was massive, wasn't it?
The queue was huge,
Who knew that many people needed a new headshot?
But they look great. I've seen some people post them. They look cool. And then Michaela talking about Meta and Google ads, which again, like we didn't get to have a look at. It's something I really did want to do, but there's so much there, and I think that's a good thing that there's more there that you can actually do, because I want to go back next year to see these people.
And also, I think the other thing that we didn't discuss in the station break is they were all kind of upstairs in the balcony area, so that it was nice to kind of be out of the main room, wasn't it, where you'd sat for the talks to go to those, but down in the main room as well, you obviously had the big sponsor, which was Lumix. They had a whole array of kit there, and I think the thing that really, those little touches that really kind of brought it all together, aside from the format of the station breaks, which I think were absolutely genius, and more conferences should take note of that format of not having to just sit through talk after talk after talk, to have a little bit of time to digest and go and get some actual industry thing. Is they had a couple. Actually, they had a model couple there, so that other times I've been to conferences where they go, "Oh, here, try out this new lens, this piece of kit," but you can't wander too far. You can't wander too far from the stand with it because it's expensive. And you stand there pointing at the rep who's trying to show it to you's face to see how the thing works, or fiddle buttons with it. Where to actually have like a bride and groom on a stage which you could happily go up and like chat to and pose if you wanted to, or ask them to do things, and there's a bit of smoke going on, wasn't there? And like it was kind of a cool setting. It really gave you a feel that you actually had something kind of reasonable to try the kit out on.
Yeah, definitely. They were very, very trusting in people. Like I took the camera back to the guy at the end, and I was like, "Oh, here's the camera back." He was like, "We're just having to trust that people are just going to bring him back," because they had like a lot of cameras there for people to try.
Yeah, because in the past, like when I've been to Thrive, they've had like Sony in the past, and then more recently Canon. But obviously, because they offer shoot sessions on the second day, it's like, oh, you've got the ability to rent this kit to take on your shoot session, but you have to bring your ID and like kind of it's a whole like sign the kit out thing. It's almost like an on the spot rental where like, so that's when we wandered over to the stand, and you were like, oh, there's a camera there, I want to go with that, and you just picked it up and walked over to the stage, and I was like, are we going to get chased in a minute or something? Like, are we allowed to do this?
But went up to the stage, directed the couple. Like they had great lighting, we had like fog, like mist stuff coming up. It was. That's the best way to test the camera, I think. But you can hear Max in the background, and hopefully you can see him on the little wide angle lens as well.
Here he is.
He's not happy to be being ignored at this point, but for a couple of hours or whatever it's been, an hour and a half.
That's it. And on that note, it has been a while, hasn't it? I think I'm going to call this now is to maybe say that maybe we get to those voice notes. Maybe they deserve an episode of their own.
I think they do. There's a lot of questions in them. We don't want to rush them. So if we get into the voice notes and release that next week as a full episode, hopefully that'll be a really cool episode.
Does that mean we get to wear the hats again?
Yeah, we can put the hats back on.
Yeah, that's it. That's a perfect excuse. There we are.
Episode 50 part 2.
Yeah, that's it. The extended cut of the party. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm glad we got to talk about it. Obviously, like Summit was absolutely incredible. I've bought my ticket for next year.
Have you? You're already in?
Already, yeah. But when they put the QR code up at the end of the event, I was like, I'm going next year. Like, I took enough out of it. We haven't even spoken about like the social and the, talk, like the networking and just talking to people who are like-minded, which is what makes a lot of what makes me feel really good when you get home and you're like, actually, I really enjoyed that.
I mean, that's it for me. If it wasn't for the fact that I know that obviously I am a loyal Thrive goer, and that I would probably end up having to do the go to Scotland twice in a month.
Stay in Scotland for a couple of weeks, mate.
Do you know, it's tempting. I'm not going to say at the moment that I'm not going, but I didn't buy an early bird at the moment. But I don't think that is a slight on the format or the people that run it or anything at all. I think for me, it's purely logistics, and I want to hedge my bets and see the speakers that come out for Thrive first, and then almost make a decision. Or to see how my year goes. If I'm sat at that time of the year again, a couple of weeks before the new business year, and have got some money to spend, I think I would rather spend the 300 quid on the ticket to that than go and buy some kit for the sake of it, because of walking away from both of them, I did feel utterly inspired, kind of really nice to kind of just do that networking, meet some new people, all of those things I think filled my cup much more than kind of a piece of kit would for a bit of a tax break.
And that's it, isn't it? And we have options now, which is great. So
the fact that there even is a choice to be made, that is, I think, is a wonderful thing in itself. For sure.
All right, well, that has been episode 50, part 1. We've spoken for quite a while, and we don't want to just make this a really long 2-hour episode. So instead, we'll do the voice notes, and we'll release it next week, so that in theory, then you should hear us for 3 weeks in a row. After not hearing us for a month.
Then we'll be on to back into kind of new kind of episode 51, new start, and back into regular posting again. Yeah,
next week will be 50.2.
50.5. 50 and a half.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. Well, amazing.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Let us know what you think of this new format with the 3 cameras and the party hats. And we'll catch you guys next week.
Bye. The crowd's looking amazing.
Good boy! Good boy!